Superman smashes the Klan. Issue 1 heads to 1946, where the Atom Man, Avenger of the Master Race, smashes the Metropolis dam open. Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen soon arrive, looking to ask the man some questions. The villain agrees for questioning, saying he's doing this for revenge, since the Americans have humiliated the Master Race of Nazis. Lois hopes this guy has thought his plan through as Superman arrives, hitting the Nazi scum away. Atom Man says that he doesn't fear the Superman as he hits him in the face, impressing Superman with his strength, but soon the Man of Steel smashes the villain down. Knowing he's defeated, Atom Man tries to flee with his jetpack, but as Lois notes, Superman uses a rock to destroy the man's jetpack, causing him to crash. Lois knew he would do that since she knows all about Superman's powers, but also his limits, like him not being able to fly and the Atom Man being out of his range. Superman checks on the villain, soon smelling something like a rot, as he finds a green glowing crystal in the man's chest arc. Superman begins to feel sick, finding he is actually in pain when suddenly his hand turns into a green alien hand. Luckily, Inspector Henderson arrives, taking the Atom Man's power belt and sealing it back up. Henderson says that Superman doesn't look so good, but soon he begins feeling much better thanks to the crystal being taken away. The inspector suggests some soup for the Superman, and Lois says that she can bring him some in exchange for some answers. Superman says he's more than happy to talk with Lois, so the reporter asks him about his powers, saying some think it was a megavitamin serum that gave him his powers, while others think it was radiation or training with mystics in the Himalayas. Superman laughs, telling Lois to go with the training with the mystics angle, but Lois wants the truth. Superman says that she will get it, just not today. Saying goodbye to Lois and Jimmy, Superman takes off, knowing despite his smile, he can't escape the smell he discovered and it's making him sick. Elsewhere, a newly arrived Chinese family head to their new home in Metropolis, but the young girl Roberta says the car makes her feel sick. Her brother Tommy jokes around about his sister being sick as they head into the highway to Metropolis. Roberta doesn't know why Tommy is so excited since they have lived in Metropolis their whole lives, but their father says it's a bit different since they lived in Chinatown and the rest of the city is much different, and they will soon see. As Tommy is excited to see the Daily Planet, Roberta vomits all over the back of the car. At the Daily Planet, Clark Kent continues to try and determine why he can't get rid of the smell of the green crystal. Lois arrives, wondering where he was that morning since he missed out on another great story. Perry arrives in the bullpen, congratulating Lois on another story about Superman fighting the Nazi villain. Both Lois and Perry notice that Clark is sniffing himself, so he excuses himself, heading to the bathrooms to try and get himself together. Suddenly his face turns into a green alien, but quickly turns back as he hears sirens, prompting him to suit up. The Lees meanwhile make it to their new home, where they are welcomed by Dr. Lee's new boss and colleague, Dr. Wilson and Jennings, who have brought the Lees an apple pie as Roberta refuses to shake their hands since she's going to throw up again, making her think of herself as a weirdo. As Jennings hands Mrs. Lee the pie, Wilson gifts Mr. Lee with his lab coat, since he wishes to officially appoint the man the chief bacteriologist at the Metropolis Health Department. As her parents are welcomed to the town, Roberta finds a paper plane sailing down towards her. It contains an apology from her brother, who was sorry he made fun of her. She goes to see Tommy up in their room, accepting his apology. Tommy is glad, offering his sister the top bunk in their room, but she just wants the bottom one since she knew he wanted the top one. Tommy looks out the window, quickly calling his sister to go outside with him, and as they do, watch what they think is Superman race over the suburb. They learn it was indeed Superman as the young Jimmy Olsen comes by, introducing himself to them, despite Roberta again saying she'd throw up if she shook his hand. Jimmy says that he was heading to the baseball team he manages for practice and wondered if they would like to come. The siblings go along and Timmy proves to be quite the pitcher, striking out many of the hitters in the practice. Roberta meanwhile tries to introduce herself to another girl, but the girl is only interested in Tommy, excited to meet a Chinese person. Roberta becomes disheartened as she is left alone, knowing she misses not just her jacket that she vomited on, but her home. Tommy is celebrated for his pitching skills, prompting Jimmy to offer him a place as the first pitcher on the team. Tommy is more than happy to, as the loudmouth boy Chuck wants to see what Tommy has got. Tommy learns that Chuck was meant to be the starting pitcher before he came along and took the job. Tommy gets ready to pitch, but tells Chuck to step back from the plate, otherwise he could hit him. Chuck says he's not afraid, so Tommy pitches, and the ball does indeed hit Chuck hard. The team rush over and Tommy apologizes, but Chuck says that the China boy did that on purpose. Jimmy knows it was an accident, and since Chuck won't apologize to him, he is off the team. him. Chuck is angered, calling Tommy all sorts of names, but before Jimmy can break up the fight, Roberta comes over to defend her brother, asking if Chuck is the kind of coward who will fight a girl half his size, because that's what he's going to have to do if he wants to get to Tommy. Chuck storms off and Jimmy gets practice back on track. Later, Chuck's uncle Matt learns he was fired from the team, asking if the kid whose fastball skills replaced him was a foreigner, learning it was indeed Tommy Lee, whose father has just taken a job at the health department. His uncle thinks it's devious how all of the foreigners are replacing him and his friends in their jobs. Chuck knows it wasn't anything like that, but his uncle tells him that these people are devious by nature, planning on taking Chuck to one of his meetings that night so he can meet some like-minded people. Tommy and Roberta meanwhile walk home, where Roberta is angry with her brother, who was just about to get into a fight he would have lost, and he would have had to have given up his spot on the team. She storms off, upset that Tommy finds fitting in so easily that he doesn't seem to care how he does it. Tommy tries to cheer her up as Chuck is taken to what his uncle calls a historic event. His uncle puts on a robe, telling Chuck to refer to him at these meetings as the Grand Scorpion as they head to the initiation ceremony for Chuck. Chuck knows this group is just a bunch of hateful bigots, but his uncle says that these people love their nation and will help rescue it from impure people. Chuck is introduced to the Clan of the Fiery Cross that wants to burn away America's impurities. Clark meanwhile awakens, knowing the smell has gotten worse, but wonders if this is all just in his head or maybe he's coming down with some sickness. Heading to the kitchen, he is surprised to hear someone might have broken into his house. In the kitchen, he finds it's just Ma and Pa Kent, but they suddenly turn into aliens who begin speaking Kryptonian. Clark knows he has heard that language before, as when he was young, he remembers Pa Kent showing him a recording device that they found with him in the spaceship. Martha calls for Jonathan, demanding to know what he is doing. Jonathan says that Clark's been asking questions, and he deserves some answers regarding his extraordinary powers. Jonathan tells Martha that while he thought the rocket was German or Japanese, he actually thinks it didn't come across an ocean, but from the stars. Martha doesn't want Clark to know anything just yet, but Clark can hear them with his super hearing. Clark joins his alien parents in the kitchen, asking who they are and what is happening, and the aliens say that it's obvious that Clark is remembering. That night, Roberta is given a new jacket by her mother to replace the one she vomited on. Roberta says that it's not the same, and her mother says, like her, she was lost when she first came to America, but soon she figured things out, just like Roberta will. Saying goodnight, Roberta goes to bed, but soon sees a light coming from outside. Outside, the Clan of the Fiery Cross have lit a cross in the Lee's front yard. The clan, led by the Grand Scorpion, call for one race, one color, and one religion. Mr. Lee wants to try and explain that they have it all wrong, but his wife tells him to call the police. Tommy rushes outside, telling them to get lost. But Chuck's uncle gives him a pipe bomb, telling him to show the boy that they mean business. Chuck throws it, but it bounces off the house roof, returning to the hooded group as it explodes. Roberta notes that the boy in the hood has red boots on as the fire burns out of control on the lawn. Tommy tries to put it out with his feet as a group of men, including Inspector William Henderson, arrive to help. Mr. Lee tries to run them off, thinking that they are with the other hooded men, but Roberta tells him that they are there to help. William tells his friends to head home since he's going to stay and help the people. His friends say Mr. Lee doesn't want their help, but Bill says that they had a burning cross on their lawn, so for tonight the Lees are them. Bill introduces himself as police, as the next morning Lois and Clark arrive to cover the story. They look over the burning cross and soon they meet with Tommy and Roberta. Clark goes and sits with Roberta, giving her his coat. Roberta thinks that Clark is familiar, as she says that she always thought she didn't belong and now she has proof. The Lees meanwhile don't want to live in the city anymore, as Henderson tells them that that is exactly what the bigots want. Clark asks Roberta what she wants, as Lois says that if they choose to stay, her and Clark will fight for them by exposing the bigots' secret identities. Roberta says that if you uncover enough secrets about a place, it becomes home, and Clark finds that really good advice. Roberta tells her family she wants to stay, so Clark gets to work on the story, and as he writes, he remembers what he vowed to forget. Years before, Clark was reading pulp mags with Pete Ross in Smallville, suddenly hearing voices that he heard from the recording floating box the day before. His face soon gets hot and his eyes begin heating up, and soon some bullies come to pick on him and Pete, ripping up their comics. The weak Clark tells him to stop and to leave Pete alone as he begins to fly, unleashing a heat vision wave on the boys, causing them to run off. But as Clark goes to help Pete up, Pete himself tells Clark to get away from him, running off as well. At Unity House, Tommy talks with his friends about what happened and how he gallantly defended his family, embellishing a few facts. Roberta meanwhile is intent on finding out who had been under the hoods, and it could be anyone, and they could have families in the neighborhood. Chuck meanwhile is woken by his uncle, who tells him that the Lees are staying and their attack didn't work. Chuck apologizes for his mistake the night before, but his uncle says that he is forgiven and everyone makes mistakes. Chuck thinks that scaring the Lees was enough, but Uncle Matt says that the Klan has many rituals to take care of them. Tommy and Roberta meanwhile walk home, and Roberta isn't happy her brother was embellishing how he defended the family, saying that he's doing anything to fit in. Tommy yells at her, saying that she's always going on about how she doesn't fit in, and if she wasn't so stuck up, she would be able to make friends on her own. Roberta starts crying, running off as elsewhere in Metropolis, a lab finds that the green crystal in the Atom Man's suit is indeed extraterrestrial in origin, and because of it, the Germans have beat them to the greatest secret in the world. As Tommy heads home alone, a car pulls up, offering to give him a ride. He declines since he is only a few blocks from home, but the driver of the car gets out, revealed to be the Grand Scorpion, who along with his thug plan on kidnapping Tommy. Roberta gets worried her brother isn't home yet, and her stomach begins churning, but she ignores it, running outside to go looking for her brother. She soon finds his hat, and he tries to get the attention of a police officer on patrol in the area, but the officer doesn't think anything happened, since Metropolis is very, very safe, especially for people like Roberta. Knowing she won't get any help there, she races to the Daily Planet, looking for Jimmy and telling him that something has happened to Tommy. She wants to know where Chuck Riggs lives, since he might be involved in this. The pair rush out to Jimmy's scooter, spilling Perry's coffee all over him. Clark tells Perry that that was the girl from their front page news that morning, and Perry tells him to give chase, since there is a story there. Clark soon finds a phone booth, changing into his Superman costume as the captured Tommy is taken by the Klan, learning that he will be tarred and feathered. The Grand Scorpion says that they don't actually hate Tommy's kind, but they just hate the filth their people bring to his country. Tommy frees himself, hitting the Grand Scorpion in the face and diving from the car, hurting his arm in the process. He races through the forest but becomes trapped near a raging river by the Klan. With no other choice, the injured Tommy dives into the river, swept away by the current as the Klan members run off, knowing the boy is done for. Jimmy and Roberta meanwhile go to Chuck's house, and Roberta demands to know where Tommy is, since she knew Chuck was at their house the night before and was the one who threw the bomb thanks to his red boots. Chuck grabs his bat, smashing the pot plants out the front of his house and telling Roberta and Jimmy to leave his property. He swings at the girl, but the bat is broken by Superman. Chuck says that he didn't mean to do that and he's Superman's biggest fan, which Roberta knows is why he wears the red boots. Superman says that Chuck might be able to help find Tommy, and if he can, he should at least try. Chuck knows where the Klan do their rituals, telling them to head towards the old bridge, and he will direct them from there. Roberta wants to get going, so Superman tells Jimmy to get Inspector Henderson as he carries Chuck and Roberta to find Tommy, who is very close to drowning. Superman Smashes the Klan issue 1 was an utterly amazing, pretty much perfect book that encapsulates a very relevant story about bigotry and alienation inside a period Superman book. Seriously, the book is an absolutely amazing read, and I loved that it's not only a love letter to the 40s Fleischer Superman cartoons and the famous radio serials that this is loosely based on, but it's also a fantastic character piece of the Chinese family in a new and unknown world. I really appreciated how much time we got to spend with this family, especially the kids Tommy and Roberta. I thought that was really great. Gene Yang definitely pulls from his own life's experiences, and the story feels very personal. I really enjoyed this book. It looked fantastic thanks to the art by Giruhuri, and I am really looking forward to the remaining 2 issues. I'm going to give this issue a 10 out of 10.